I took two strangers that were dealing with grief and I had them write a letter to themselves 6 months before their loss.
I'd like to share ways that I've gotten through some of that information with people so that hopefully, maybe it helps somebody.
How are you going to deal with that? That's the true question. Rather than it going away, how are you going to take that grief, especially in a big loss, and what are you going to do to help others? Because that's the greatest gift, is to help somebody else that may be grieving.
So my name is Jim Miller, and I lost my wife to suicide in January of 1998, and I lost my son to alcohol poisoning.
My name is Charlie Ray, and I'm missing my son Christopher.
I would love if you could read me in the audience that letter.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll explore that a little bit.
So this is my letter to myself about 6 months before Christopher had passed away. Charlie, I'm writing you this letter to let you know your life is about to change forever. You are about to experience tragedy like you never had before. I want you to know you are going to be okay. Some amazing things will come your way, and this story and what you are about to go through needs to be heard. You are going to change the world and be ready for this ride. But this comes at a cost. 6 months from now, you are going to lose your son, Christopher. He's going to end his life at 14 to suicide. I know this is a lot to process. Show him as much love as you can. Tell him you love him every day. Do as much as you can with him. Spend as much time as you can. Take as many pictures as you can with him. Know when this time comes, this moment will not be able to be stopped from happening. Your son, Chris, will light a power and a passion that will change the world. Your son will be with you through this all. Love, Charlie.
How's that feel?
Writing it, when I wrote that letter, it was like, just when you start talking about you're gonna write this letter to yourself, the emotion started happening. It feels good to write that. It actually feels like part of grief work to write that letter, and just, it's a release.
My first wife had, mental illness, and, it was a struggle for a very long period of time. Really had tried everything I possibly could imagine to prevent it from happening. And then with my son, we had been battling him and me and my daughter from my first wife. We tried everything possible. Every veterans hospital, in Illinois, up here in Milwaukee. We've been to every VA hospital you could possibly imagine. Emergency rooms, having him detox and, rehab, and, years and years of battling. And to Jim's credit, he tried everything he possibly could as well to try to recover.
So back in 2010, actually 2009 school year, Christopher really liked this girl in his class. She did not like him back. So her and two other girls made fun of him, call him names, put stuff on social media. Really didn't seem depressed, but he had trouble sleeping at night. So we brought him to the pediatrician. Pediatrician couldn't find anything wrong with him. So she thought he was mildly depressed, and she put him on Zoloft. We started noticing throughout the school year that he would always wear these long sleeve shirts, always. So I remember one day I had to force up his sleeves, and he had cut marks on both arms. So we brought him to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist saw him one time and said, yeah, he's depressed, we're gonna increase his medication. Well, 2 weeks after the increase, he went down the basement, he hung himself. My 9-year-old daughter's the one that found him. It had to cut him down, start CPR. It was that emotional trauma there that just really took everything in a new direction.
What were some of the things that you'd say helped you through your grieving process?
Not to minimize grief, I think you really need to kind of embrace it. You need to feel the pain, because if you don't feel the pain, at some point down the road, you're gonna grieve. You're gonna feel that pain and grieve that pain. And if you don't do it right then, and you don't lean into that pain and feel it fully, then it's gonna stay inside you. It'll surface on other ways down the road. Talking about it, being more open about it. I'm really passionate about, the stigma about mental health and getting rid of the stigma.
Yeah, the things that helped me through my grieving process is grief work. For 3 years going through different grief counseling. There was one place that it was met twice a month. So I would go there as the adults, and then we'd bring our kids to one, and they would get to speak separately. They'd go into their groups, and the adults would stay downstairs. So every single week we're doing grief work. I'll have to say that really had a huge impact in where I am now versus if I didn't do anything, I don't know where I'd be. I mean, honestly, how are you gonna deal with it? That's the true question. Rather than it going away, how are you gonna take that grief, especially in a big loss like my son? How are you gonna take that? And what are you gonna do to help others? Because that's the greatest gift, is to help somebody else that may be grieving.
But I would love if you could read that letter to us.
Jim, do not sweat the small stuff. Treasure each moment. Be the bigger person. Say I love you often. Make sure you take every measure possible to prevent this from happening, even if it is hard, even if it is very hard. You do not want to spend the rest of your days wishing you had done what I've asked you here, because if you don't, you will. Jim.
How did you feel writing that?
I wrote that letter because that's the advice I would give anybody, is try everything you possibly can, to prevent it from happening, especially if you can see it coming, which I did. I saw it coming in both those cases.
Do you feel that you had support around you, good support system around you around that time?
Yeah, the support system, my parents were still alive. They were there. My brothers and sisters were always there. Actually, the entire church community and the support there. I remember one day they came up and literally cut the grass.
Is the support still there?
No. Yeah, you can definitely tell not only the support starts to disappear, they talk when you go through a grieving process that like everyone forgot about them. Well, for somebody that's, you're close to him, he was a classmate or whatever that may be, you go through this process where like, it's not that emotional trauma. You're not invested in that person like a mother or father was.
I wasn't ready for how long it took me to get through to where I was kind of close to myself. Grieving my son took a lot longer than I had anticipated. It was a deeper cut. Interestingly enough, some of the people that had supported me more while he was sick, some people disappointed me a little bit, and other people really surprised me.
What are some things that you wish people would have done differently?
Just check in, hey, how you doing? Having a conversation with you, providing a little bit of levity. There's some pretty dark days there, especially with the pandemic going on and working from home and all that stuff. Providing an opportunity to not think about the loss, and just fellowship, for lack of a better term, or camaraderie, or whatever it is. And and I've also talked to people that have lost people as well, and they'd share their experiences and talk to me, and listen to me about what I'm experiencing. So I think that was helpful.
I guess mine's a little bit different than most. My grieving process is a little bit different than most, right? Because you've got that loss and you kind of try and rebuild your life. With my loss, I'm taking that to the next level where I'm going out trying to help people with emotional traumas, trying to make an impact in this world. And it's always there, but for me, it motivates me on what my real goal is.
Any last thing you want to say or share?
Forgiveness is the hardest part because, forgiving yourself is the hardest part. Forgiving somebody else is easier than forgiving yourself. And forgive yourself for, I could have done this better, I could have done that better, or what if I'd have done this that day? What if I had woken up? What if I had, before I went to bed, I did this, or, and there's no answers. The person that has the answers just died. So, you have to forgive yourself. Otherwise, you're going to live with pain, your whole life.
On the subject of grief, there's no wrong or right way on how to feel with your emotions. So don't be afraid if you have to break down in the middle of the store and you have to cry. Don't be ashamed of that. Maybe somebody else needs to hear that story of what happened to you because that's gonna help their grief too. Just work on yourself. Do as much work as you can on yourself and tell people your story, to share about stories about that loved one.
Your name is?
Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Yep.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
My
to
name
meet
is Ken, just like the Barbie doll. That's a way how people...
That's what I was thinking.
Exactly.
Your posture is impeccable.
Yeah. A, B, rolling, and speeding.